The FNAF lore is filled with dozens of mysteries, questions, and Easter eggs that fans and theorists have tried to solve for the past 11 years. But one of the biggest questions we've had since the start of the franchise was the timeline of one of the major events in the FNAF story, the death of Charlotte Emily, the child that possessed the puppet. When did she die? What was William Afton's motive? And could we all have been wrong about the timeline since the very beginning? Today, I'm here with fellow theorist Fazbear Entertainment to answer those questions, piece together and discuss the mysterious timeline of her death, and maybe uncover some new secrets along the way. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Withered Circle here with a very special guest, Fazbear Entertainment. Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, so before we start discussing what we're actually here to talk about, we gotta get into the basics of the whole Charlie debate, because it's a mess. Alright, so to go over the basic sort of idea of Charlie's death, if you ask a casual fan when she died, they'd say either right before or right after Crying Child's death, so via the Bite of 83. So basically in 1983. That was proposed a long time ago. It's been the common consensus for ages, but lately there's been some evidence pointing in a different direction, namely that she died in 1987 instead of 83. And Fazant, you're kind of the big proponent of this theory.
Yes.
Alright, Fazant, so my first question is simple. What's sort of the basic premise of Charlie87?
So there's two variations of Charlie87, right? There's my variation where I believe there's no DCI, and then there's what I think is the more common interpretation of people who believe Charlie87, where it's that Charlie87 and the DCI are both together. But my version that I like is the basic premise is just that Charlie is killed prior to the gameplay of FNAF 2, but at the FNAF 2 location, and that's what causes the investigations that go on to shut the restaurant down.
If I'm not mistaken, Cry Knight believes Charlie87 with the DCI, and if I believe Charlie87, I'd personally go for that route, because I'm a pretty strong DCI believer. But I understand why you go the route you do. So what else is there about the sort of basics of Charlie87?
So it's kind of like a two-parter. The first one, which I think is the one that I think made a lot of people question, is obviously the Help 102 grave order, right? Like, we go in and there's all of the dolls representing the kids' souls, and they're set up by some graves, and the graves are numbered 0 through 5. 0 being Chica, and 5 being the puppet. And when you light them in that order, it gives you a Bonnie mask, right? And so that immediately was like, okay, well, for me, the last time we saw gravestones in relations to the kids, it was giving us the names of the kids, which was kind of like a big deal. And so to me, the simplest explanation for what the gravestones and Help 1 and 2 are telling us is just a continuation of that idea, where last time we got the names of the kids, and this time we're getting the order they died in. And that's kind of paired with the idea of Midnight Motorist 87, the idea that, that minigame is showcasing events happening in 1987, which I don't think was a super popular idea. I don't know if it existed before Five Nights at Freddy's, but obviously that kind of jump-started the discussions around it.
Yeah. When Help 1 and 2 came out, and we'll get to the graves in a bit, so I don't want to go too deep into it now, but I will say that when Help 1 and 2 came out, a lot of people kind of figured that since it was going against what we already believed, that this was the order of the release of the souls. I don't know if I agree with that. I like it, and it kind of makes sense with the topic of Help 1 and 2, like the story of letting go of the past, and that's how you like finish off Glitch Trap and so on. But like Gibby's Horror Homestead believes that the graves mean nothing, which I think is also kind of the wrong the wrong sentiment in my opinion. So I don't know.
Yeah, I can understand that, because there are there's always going to be something in a game that is not intended to have a purpose. Kind of like the the Mr. Hippo quote of like, are we reading too deep into things and stuff like that. But I think with this, the gravestones being so symbolic previously in the series, and then having them be the final puzzle before the big like lore reveal of Help 1 and 2, where Glitch Trap gets squished, it feels like it should have some kind of importance. regardless of like what that is saying.
Especially because it's a very specific puzzle that leads you to a very specific lore item. And I still don't understand what the correlation between the graves and the Bonnie mask is. But you know what? We'll get there when we get to the Help Wanted 2 section, because I have some Help Wanted 2 questions. And this is a bit of a different question. But since that's your like favorite piece of evidence for Charlie87, what is the best piece of evidence for Charlie83?
I think probably also from Help Wanted 2, the 1983 code used to get the puppet doll. Which is, you know, it's kind of funny. It's like, I think realistically, if you're looking at the evidence provided by Help Wanted 2, just objectively, without any, you know, any like stuff thrown on, it kind of implies MCI 83. If Charlie's 83 and she's last of the MCI. But
yeah,
you know,
I guess
we all know how we feel about that.
Yeah, MCI 83 is an interesting topic for the puppet death timeline. But I personally think that with Into the Pit being semi-soft games canon in some way, 85 is pretty much a given at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Now that we've gone over like the basic questions, if we're gonna get really into the story of Charlie's death and so on, while most people believe that she died in 83 and they put her death and the possession of the puppet as like the big breaking point of William's discovery of Remnant, if she died in 1987, what was William's motive for killing her? And did he like fully know about possession by that point? I think he did, but what do you think?
Yeah, I actually think, you know, given Secret of the Mimic and how we see William be throughout that game, you know, like I think that William probably killed Fiona, and I think he also killed David. I know that one's more up for debate, but I think we can pretty solidly say that he probably, you know, had something to do with Fiona's death, whether or not he actually like stabbed her or just started the fire or whatever. But I think it's pretty clear his motivation in Secret of the Mimic, where he's clearly targeting Edwin for financial purposes. And I think that's just why he killed Charlie as well. I think that he didn't like what Henry was doing, because I think that Henry was the person in charge of Freddy's. And so he wanted to attack Henry to get him out of the picture. So it's kind of like the same idea that most people have, but it's just like slightly different timeline and motivations.
So do you think that Henry is like the CEO that was mentioned in the FNAF 2 newspapers, or is that someone else?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that probably was Henry.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially because I feel like the toys are kind of very... the toys, like, design-wise, are weird, because they're kind of mediocre melody, Rockstar adjacent, but they're also very similar to the Fun Times. So
yeah, it's like a mix.
Yeah, what I kind of rolled with is that William actually helped design the toys, but then he was kicked out of Fazbear at some point in 1985, likely, and Henry stole those designs, and that got William pissed, which is why he went and did save them if he did a DCI, or killed Charlie if Charlie87 is true.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for Charlie87, a lot of the motivations you can gather for like William possibly doing the DCI, you can just apply that to Charlie as well. Like it's essentially just like a plug in place of the events, you know. Same type of idea between them. So if like his motive for killing Charlie was to kind of undermine Henry's work and try to get the location closed down, and you believe it happened before FNAF 2, why would he then go and be the night guard there? Well, I think that after he killed Charlie, Charlie was the first possession, you know, like I think regardless of her dying last, I think that she was the first to possess an animatronic because, you know, the FNAF 2 location, I believe is where Give Gifts, Give Life happened. And so I think that William killed Charlie, she possessed the puppet, and then she did give gifts, give life. And I think William was observing the effects of the possession for the MCI. Okay, so I watched your like original full first part of Charlie87, like your big video on your channel. I don't remember if you addressed this, but about the nightmares that happen in between
the FNAF 2 nights, where it shows the puppet kind of overseeing the possession of the animatronics. What do you think of the background kind of being FNAF 1 related, like the tables and the overall lighting and so on, being more similar to FNAF 1 than FNAF 2?
Yeah, I think it definitely is FNAF 1 where the in-between nights are happening. But my take on it, and this is definitely one of the ones where it's like you kind of have to stretch it to make it work a little bit. But I think in the story, what is it? Alone Together?
Yeah.
In Tales from the Pizzaplex, there's a kid who gets killed, and he's inside of, or he doesn't get killed. He gets himself trapped inside of a little box that he made, and then he dies in that box. And then his spirit kind of like wanders around his house, and he doesn't know that he's dead, and he's like going through his day-to-day life and stuff like that. And then we have his grandmother who knows that he's dead, and she's like giving him hints and stuff about like, oh, you gotta, ghosts gotta find their bodies to know that they're dead and stuff like that. And then once he finds his body inside the machine, then all of his memories come flooding back to him. And I think that is what that is showcasing, where the kids, presumably it's Gabriel, where we're seeing the in-between night cutscenes. I think that he is coming to realize that he's been stuffed the whole time. I think prior to this, he was just a wandering spirit. And then as he possesses the animatronic, he finds his body inside of it. All of his memories come flooding back, and that's why we see the FNAF 1 location. Because, he was stuffed there.
So, timeline-wise, you placed this, like, right before FNAF 1, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, because it's, like, obviously, it's, like, seeing memories.
Yeah.
So, I would say... I do like the interpretation of, like, the person, Jeremy, whoever that is, putting on the Freddy mask and then seeing Freddy's memories because he's wearing the mask. Yeah. But I think it's just, like, a double type thing where Gabriel is, getting his memories back, and then the Night Guard is putting on the mask and seeing those memories. So I think the in-between nights are still happening, during FNAF 2, but the memories are happening in 85.
Yeah, okay. So I was wondering, because I was thinking about those nightmares a while ago, if this means that the FNAF 1 location is the 85 location. This is kind of off topic, but I don't know if it really makes sense. But I think that at the time that FNAF 2 was made, Scott kind of didn't really have a set idea for the 85 location in mind, so he used the FNAF 1 location. So it is intentional that he used the FNAF 1 location. I just think that he did it because he didn't have a visual for the 85 location pizzeria.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now that we've kind of... We have, like, a basic understanding of the timeline up until FNAF 6. Like, we have a rough understanding of where things happen, and even if we don't know the exact dates or everything, we can still kind of make an order in a pretty much solid way. And FNAF 6 was kind of made to answer all the questions, but one line that is kind of central to the Charlie87 debate is what Henry says in the Insanity ending tape, which is like, the wound first inflicted on me. So
yes,
we thought it was Charlie, but I kind of wanted to ask you what your options would be for the wound first inflicted on me. Like, if it's not the MCI, what could the wound be?
Well, so if it's not the MCI, because I know people, think that's a bit of a stretch, given now Secret of the Mimic, it definitely could not have been the case back in FNAF 6, but I think now, with Secret of the Mimic, I think it might be referring to William manipulating Henry into helping him destroy Edwin's life and take over MCM. Kind of like the wound then would be like corrupting Henry and having him assist in the downfall of Edwin.
And I guess also kind of ruining Henry's relationship with Edwin, because they're implied to be friends in some way, because Edwin calls Henry Hen.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess that makes sense. I just think that the wound has to be something a lot more direct.
Personal.
Yeah, like something more personal and something more violent than just getting Henry to not be a very good person and essentially ruin Edwin's entire life. I think that's kind of indirect. So, what do you think of the possibility? And it's really up in the air because we don't know if this character is even canon. I think you know what I'm getting onto. Do you think that it's possible it could be Sammy Emily, so Charlie's brother?
I have thought about that. Yeah, when I was first doing, making the Charlie87 script, I was thinking about like, okay, what could the wound be if not Charlie? And that was one of the things that came across my mind. Like, well, maybe William killed Sammy first in this timeline, so that, in the books it was that he didn't kill Charlie, or he didn't kill Sammy, he killed Charlie. And then in the games, it could be he didn't kill Charlie, he killed Sammy at Fredbear's, and then that would then go on to, later have him kill Charlie after that point. And that would also be kind of like the diverging point between the novels, where in the novels, Henry, makes the Charlie bots and stuff like that. But in this timeline, Charlie didn't die at Fredbear's at that time, so he didn't end up doing that. But it is a possibility. The only issue I take is just that we have like no information on Sammy at all.
Yeah. He's a very like novels only character. But I was thinking about like what you were saying about Sammy dying at Fredbear's, and we'll get to why Charlie dies at Freddy's later when we get to Tickets to Fun, because that's really important. But I was just thinking that because I've already proposed this a while ago, that the swap between Save Him and like the puppet's soul theoretically being a boy, and then we're introduced to Charlotte in the books in FNAF 6, could be that Henry thinks that the kid that's getting killed outside is Sammy, kind of like an inverse of how Charlie thinks that Sammy died in the novels. But maybe, what if they both died, but Sammy died at Fredbear's and Charlie died at Freddy's? So Sammy was the wound, and they were both killed in the same way, in different places at different times.
Yeah, I think that's a very solid option. That's why, I take issue with the wound just being like, oh, it's confirmed to be Charlie, because there's so many different options for what the wound could be, in my opinion, that it's like, if it has any possibility to not be about Charlie, then that opens up questions about, everything else. And so I do think, because it's strange that, like, everything else from the novels seems to carry over relatively, aside from what we're about to get into with the Fredbear stuff. But the fact that like all the characters seem to travel over, but like Sammy is just like nowhere at all. And then like you were talking about, you got the weird like Save Him stuff, and then you also have like in FNAF 3 the Stage 01 kid. Like there's a kid who just randomly goes missing at Fredbear's. And so it's like that very well could be Sammy, in which case it could be that Sammy was the first wound in the games, and then Charlie was killed later on. But yeah. I'm
thinking now, it's a bit weird, and it's a bit of a weird thought, but Save Him and Security Puppet Alchemist Fantasy, whatever you want to call it, they're so thematically different, but they lead to the same conclusion, which is a dead kid, tire tracks, and the puppet. So I don't know if I don't know if this makes sense. I don't know if I like this, but maybe Save Him is about the Stage 01 kid, and possibly, I don't know. Do you think that the thing in FNAF 4 in the Night 4 minigame is hair, like the thing poking out of the suit, or is that just wires?
I'm not really sure, because I mean I have a whole thought about FNAF 4 with loop victim stuff, but yeah, I feel like realistically it should be like the inside of the Fredbear suit, but like why would it stick out like that? It's definitely a possibility, especially with the crying child being so scared of stuff, and now that we know what we do about where Charlie died, it could very well be possible that Sammy was killed at Fredbear's, and that's what the crying child saw.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought, that the wound is Sammy, and then what bled out, because the full quote is, a wound first inflicted on me that I then let bleed out to cause all of this. So when it bled out was when William killed Charlie, so he killed both. I just kind of came up with this now, like I'm kind of not sure. Someone's probably proposed this before, but with the context of Charlie87, it kind of makes sense, and also explains why the whole Save Him, Save Her thing isn't a retcon, because the one retcon that Scott did happened before FNAF 6 came out. So
Yeah.
And he said he doesn't like doing retcons, and people think that he's always retconning stuff. It's like Scott cons / like changing the story slightly, but it's never a contradiction. So maybe this isn't a contradiction either. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Give it some more thought.
I think the retcon probably has to do with something in the newspapers, but I don't know what exactly.
Yeah, because I made the video proposing it was the 20 years later thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes sense. I think it's a good interpretation. But Hyperdroid made a video after that proposing it was the whole convicted thing from the newspapers, which also makes sense. I like both. I think the newspaper thing is a bit more likely, and also like now Secret of the Mimic kind of fixed the 20 years line issue.
Yeah.
So it's not really a retcon anymore. So it's a shame, but I also think that it makes sense to be the newspapers because there's no way to get around the conviction thing unless it's Henry that got convicted.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I mentioned this earlier, but since you talked about this a lot on the FNAF Theory subreddit and just on Discord in general, tickets to fun and the evidence that it has for Charlie87. So just go over pretty much what you found and we can talk about that.
Yeah, so obviously the first thing is, prior to this, the consensus I feel like was that Charlie died at Fredbear's. Tickets to Fun just took that out back and shot it in the head.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it has a page talking about party wristbands, which is very reminiscent of the wristbands that the kids were wearing when Charlie died, and the one that she wore herself. And it talks about Freddy Fazbear's Pizza hosts birthday parties. All parties are catered by a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza kitchen. Goodie bags and balloons are complimentary. All children attending parties at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza are provided with wristbands as a souvenir of their time at our establishment and to easily track party attendees. So this just straight up says that the wristbands are at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And then on that page, when you use the black light, it showcases the 8-bit Charlie from the security puppet minigame.
Yeah.
Her, sprite in the window. And so that then immediately threw into like, okay, well, in the novels, she died at Fredbear's at 83. Now that she didn't die at Fredbear's, and we know that for certain in the games, does she still die in 83? Like, can we really rely on parallels from the novels for this type of stuff? And then on that page as well, it has a set of words underneath that say "Let's Party" in like a graphic design, and the design of the "Let's Party" that it says is the exact stylization of Toy Chica's bib.
Yeah.
Even down to like the same, like it's got these little triangles and stuff that are all around it.
The confetti, yeah.
Yeah, the confetti. It's the exact same like colors and placements as Toy Chica's bib. It's just straight up Toy Chica's bib slapped on there. I think the only difference is Toy Chica's bib is usually depicting the "Let's Party" in yellow, but this one's in white. But so that is kind of like, okay, so now that we know she died at a Freddy's, and now we have this Toy Chica connection there on the page, and that one is kind of like, it's possible they're just using Let's Party because they're talking about party wristbands. But I just find it, if you're using what's on the page to try to suss out information about where she died, I think that's interesting.
It's a bit too convenient.
Yeah. And then the other Tickets to Fun connection, this one is also a bit looser, but there are these tickets in the book that you get, and the tickets are yellow, and they have a set of numbers on them. And when you put those numbers into a hex code thing, it gives you almost the exact color sprite of William Afton in the Save Them minigame. It's not exactly the same, it's slightly off, but it's very close. And so to me, I was like, okay, well, this is connecting purple to yellow, right? The tickets are yellow and the code on them is purple. And so that brings my mind to Midnight Motorist because of yellow guy, purple guy debate.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, well, maybe this is, more evidence that William is the Midnight Motorist. But then I was thinking about it some more, and the tickets have Toy Freddy on them. And so if we're connecting Midnight Motorist to the tickets have Toy Freddy on them, indicating they're from the FNAF 2 location, which then also lines up with Toy Chica's bib on the page talking about Charlie's death, connecting Midnight Motorist to the 87 location, and then connecting that with Toy Chica's bib on the page talking about where Charlie died. It was kind of like a, people have said it's a stretch because they're like, tickets are just yellow, but I think that's kind of silly because, that feels pretty intentional to me.
I saw the post where you called that out. Reddit really hated you for that one. I don't know if I buy the hex code thing, because don't the tickets go up in a sequential order, like to go 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, they do. It starts 634 893. The next one is 634 894. The one after that is 895. So it is sequential, but all three of them do give a different shade of purple still.
Okay. I think the purple connection makes sense, because the whole kit in general is really FNAF 2 adjacent, because what does it have again? It has Jeremy's paycheck, right? Or is it Mike's? Yep. Jeremy's
paycheck.
FNAF 1 newspaper and FNAF 2 security badge, right?
Yep. And then the FNAF 2 tickets on the thing.
And then
they also do give you a wristband, but I'm not certain that that's supposed to be the same wristband that's used for the security puppet, because it says Five Nights at Freddy's on it.
What color is it? Do we know? Because I haven't.
It's red.
It's red.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you play the security puppet minigame, it goes through like those 3 phases. The first one is hunt for green, and there's like red and yellow wristbands. Then it's hunt for green, and it keeps adding more wristbands, and then it finally gets to green on the third go. Maybe it's got something to do with that.
Yeah, I know Dual Process has made the connection of the assuming that security puppet takes place at the FNAF 2 location. There are the wristbands, and there's 4 different colors. There's the yellow, red, blue, and green is Charlie's. And Dual Process pointed out that the FNAF 2 location has 4 party rooms. And so it could be that each child is assigned a different wristband depending on which party room they're supposed to be in.
Yeah, I can see that.
That was just an interesting connection to relate it to FNAF 2, but I thought it was neat.
Yeah, it is. It makes sense. Also, I think that it makes sense for them to implement the wristband thing after the MCI, because everyone was like running around. In Into the Pit, we see like that dramatic flashback of the MCI. Everyone's running around. It's not what actually happened, probably, but it's a reflection.
I think it probably is, actually.
I doubt it, because it was such a quiet thing, in theory, right? Because no one knew what happened to the kids, and then a couple days later they spotted William on the security cameras, luring them to a back room, and they were never seen again. And it makes sense that just 5 kids just vanished from the face of the earth, and no one noticed until the place closed. So, I don't think it was as violent as Into the Pit says, because you're screaming, sobbing, people are running around. In the book, there's like people shouting to try and find their kids. I don't think it was that traumatic.
Yeah, I mean, I have a whole segment about it in my video, but I was thinking that, my take is we see the Spring Bonnie, the pit trap, leave from the security office, which I think says that William was working as a security guard in 85 whenever he did the MCI.
Yeah.
And then everything goes down, and there's a bunch of panic and screaming and stuff like that. And then you go into the back room, and you see the kids dead there. But then after that point, like when you go in there, the kids are no longer in the party room. They all disappeared from that point. And so I was thinking it's possible that it caused a big panic. Like somebody saw the kids in the back room, freaked out, everybody ran out, they called the police, and in that time between the police getting there, William stuffed all the bodies. And so that's why the children are presumed dead, because people have reported seeing the bodies, but no bodies were ever found, and so they can only officially be reported missing.
I see. Although, yeah, I guess it would kind of, if there was only like 1 or 2 eyewitness accounts of the dead kids, it wouldn't really be enough to report them dead. I just think that it's a very short time frame for William to work with, because he'd have to stuff them all in record space. Although it makes sense, because one of the big questions that people had is, how did he stuff them into the animatronics if the animatronics were on stage? So if everyone left, he'd be able to stuff them while they were on stage with no one noticing. So that's interesting. But where I was going with this is that the wristbands being a thing implemented after 85 makes sense, because it helps keep track of everyone, make sure that no one gets lost, and if a kid goes missing, it's easy to just count the wristbands. So it would make sense as a feature that Henry implemented after the MCI.
Yeah, it also, like, we can know for certain that it works after a kid is dead. So, like, you know, say the MCI happens, all the kids go missing, they never know where the bodies go. Then in the 87 location, they implement the wristbands, and even though Charlie's dead, and even outside the building, the puppet still follows the signal to Charlie's body. So, like, if more kids were killed and stuffed into suits, the puppet would be able to track down the kids no matter where they were in the building with the wristbands active. So they would guarantee know, you know, like, as a safety feature, like what happened, where the kids are, and stuff like that.
Okay. So we're gonna touch on the security puppet later because I have some questions about that. But for now, I want to skip forward to Help Wanted 2. Like we were talking about, there's some interesting evidence for both Charlie83 and Charlie87 there. So
Yeah.
we already talked about the 1983 keypad before, but if you don't think it's referring to the year of Charlie's death, I kind of know what you think, but I want to know some of the motivation behind why you think so. So what do you think the 1983 keypad in the private room means?
So I think it's a double thing. I think that, one, it's reusing the same code that was already in the private room from sister location. But two, I think it probably is when the puppet character was made, because I think that all of the you know, the way you get all of the dolls throughout Help Wanted 2 is something in relation to the character. So like Chica, you get Chica's doll from the food mini games, and you get Foxy's doll from the Foxy Log Ride, and you get Bonnie's doll from playing Bonkabon, and you get Freddy's doll from playing Fazzer Blast, which is, you know, it's Freddy Fazbear Fazzer Blast. The only one I think that's a bit of a stretch for that is the Golden Freddy one, because we don't know anything about Golden Freddy's character, and it fits more with like a Shatter Victim type thing. I think the way you get that doll.
How do you get it again?
I can see a case. I was saying it fits with like a Shatter Victim type thing, you know, because it's like the 5 into 1 is the way you get the Golden Freddy doll, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so that one is like, you could definitely relate that more to the kid in Golden Freddy and not necessarily Golden Freddy the character.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that's like, you know, iffy for me. And so I could also see a case for like, okay, well, if Golden Freddy's special, the puppet's probably special too. But you know, I think it's 50-50 on that for me. But I think if you're relating it to the character, I think the fact that it's a security puppet in a security office with the 1983 code, I think is indicating something about the puppet character, not necessarily about Charlie, the same as the rest of them. But yeah, and then also a Secret of the Mimic having the puppet designs on Henry's keyboard or his computer or whatever, it makes it unlikely that the puppet would have been made in 87. I think it probably started out as, you know, part of the main cast, and it probably was, you know, what people assume it to be, where it gives out gifts and stuff like that. And then I think in 87 it was reprogrammed to be a security feature because of the MCI.
Okay, so I was actually going to leave this for later, but since we're on the topic of the difference between the puppet and the security puppet, and I've been thinking about this because the 1983 keypad is obviously private room sister location, you know. So in Ultimate Custom Night, in the UCN like sister location office, there is the security puppet front and center. It's like the main thing, it's the first thing you see, it's really big, and it's just to the right of the door. So if I remember correctly, it's like at the far left. So why do you think the security puppet would be in the sister location room specifically? Why do you think there's a security, like if you look up, let me look up an image of the sister location office. But if you look it up, the Ultimate Custom Night office, the security puppet is right there. At least it should be, hold on. Yeah, no, it's at the far right. Let me send it to you real quick, just so you know what I mean. So the sister location office has the security puppet at the very far right, And
I see what you mean.
yeah, you kind of, your vision is drawn to Egg Baby, who's also FNAF 6, and then you kind of go to the security puppet, who's on the right. And so why do you think it's in sister location specifically, and not something more general like FNAF 1?
That is a good question. Obviously, the security puppet definitely has that fun time type of vibe to it as well.
Yeah.
With like the faceplate and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe then, like, the only thing I could think of is just that putting the puppet in the sister location office in Help 102 is in relation to this. And this is just saying that the security puppet was made, like this security puppet, the one we see in Ultimate Custom Night, was made, and FNAF 6 was made for sister location, for the bunker.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it would be made at all to begin with. It's also weird because it has tears, but obviously this is not the puppet, the one that's possessed. It's blue tears, and also, there's already the puppet in Lefty, so.
Yeah, the timeline doesn't really match up, because if we're going to say, oh, William took the puppet to sister location, that's impossible because the puppet can't be melted down or experimented on, because it's in FNAF 1 probably. Like after FNAF 2, it's in FNAF 1 somewhere, in some back room most likely. And then after that it has to go to FNAF 3. So, I don't know if this is, it could be referring just to a general thing of this is a victim of Afton's, and also connecting it to FNAF 6, because the office kind of has some FNAF 6 imagery here and there, but that kind of appeals to the imagery of FNAF 6. You've got Egg Baby, and you've got Security Puppet. Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that a bit more. But again, it doesn't really make sense. The Security Puppet in general, like that specific design of it, is super strange. Like, yeah, it's not the Security Puppet there when Charlie died, because this is not the one that Charlie possesses. And so, like, I don't know, because I've always, I've heard people say, like when I say that the puppet was a security feature because it's called Security Puppet, people are like, oh, that's just because the Security Puppet is the one in FNAF 6. It's the puppet in the one that was there with Charlie wasn't a security puppet. Then why would it have the security feature of watching after the kids if it wasn't a security puppet? So this is just strange in general, that design. I don't know. Yeah, I'll see if I can like find anything else about it that, like, why it would be there. Maybe it was designed, like I was saying earlier, that maybe the toys were co-designed by William. Maybe the security puppet was also kind of made by William, which is why it has the faceplates. It's also kind of similar to, this is a stretch, but it's kind of similar to the inside of the Night Force Springlock suit, because it has the eyes, the thing down the middle, and the smile. So it's definitely not the security puppet, because there's no way Michael would fit inside.
Inside that.
Yeah, that would be pretty much impossible unless he just stayed in the box. But no, I think it could just be as simple as this is a thing that William helped design, which explains why Egg Baby is there. Because Egg Baby is also kind of fun time. He looks like a fun time. He's got those like rosy cheeks that the toys and the Fun Times have, and obviously he's called Baby, which is kind of similar to Circus Baby. But okay. And the last thing from Help 102 that I kind of wanted to ask you about is in Help 102, after you beat each level, you stand in front of that like that prize machine that you take the balls out of, and it gives you an action figure or a plush or whatever. And there's that illustration of the Fall Fest with the main 4 Freddy's characters and the puppet in the background surrounded by birds, like as a scarecrow, and it's already got tears running down its face. So it's already got the possessed tears that theoretically Charlie gave it. So what's your explanation for that?
So, I've seen people use that to be like, oh, well, this is Fall Fest 83 and the puppet has tears, and so this is showcasing the puppet died in 83. We don't know when that Fall Fest is in that picture. Like, people assume it's 83 because that was the last one we saw, but also in Help 1 and 2, we see a 1970 Fall Fest. And the 1970 Fall Fest we get in Secret of the Mimic at the Snow Globe has the exact same stage and design of that poster of the puppet and the Freddy's cast there. So I don't think, just saying that, I get the connection of saying like, oh, it's simplest to just assume it's the 83 one, but I think we have no idea when this Fall Fest is, and also it's in the style of Freddy and Friends.
Yeah.
And what I find interesting about that is that in Freddy and Friends, it's specifically Freddy and Friends on tour.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. And in Freddy and Friends on tour, the main cast, the Freddy's band, the Chica Freddy Bonnie, they go to a new restaurant as part of the show, and that restaurant they go to is an almost one-to-one design with Junior's. It's incredibly similar. So you have the main Freddy cast traveling to a new location that looks like Junior's, and in that building, they get Foxy and they take his mask off, and he has an Endo-O2 head underneath.
Yeah.
So that to me is kind of indicating that Freddy and Friends on Tour was produced around the 87 era. Showcasing the movement of like, oh, the Freddy's band is going to be at a new location. Like, come check out, your favorites in the new spot they're at. And Foxy has the Endo-O2 in there. And so I don't think that poster is helpful at all for like determining anything about Charlie's death here, because like Freddy and Friends on Tour is still playing in the Pizzaplex era. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's just been running this whole time as like a cartoon that's, a regular thing.
I think the Freddy and Friends on Tour teasers were intended as like an old nostalgia kind of thing. Like Fazbear found these tapes and now they're showing it to their fans. I think that makes sense because they have like weird filters over it at the beginning and end, which is where they sneaked in the teasers for the characters.
Yeah, I think so, and that's where they have like the
glitch trap.
They have like the weird
tangle.
glitches. Yeah, where like we put all the glitches together to make glitch trap.
Yeah. I personally assumed that this was Fall Fest 83 because that's the last Fall Fest, and it kind of makes sense for it to be the last Fall Fest because that's when Freddy's opened, that's when the bite happened, and it's natural that Fazbear kind of closed a majority of its outside things. It kind of focused on Freddy's and diverted attention from Fall Fest and Fredbears and so on to focus on the new location. So that's kind of why I assumed the illustration was about 83 and not anything else. But I guess it's possible for Fall Fest to go on till 87, and even if it didn't, just to be present as a part of the franchise.
Yeah. The thing that makes me think Fall Fest continued to go on is, in Fall Fest 83 in Dreadbear, when you're in the barn, one of the posters on the wall is for Spookfest, which Spookfest sounds very much like the Halloween Fall Fest time, and in FNAF 6, when Scrap Trap is in the alley, there's a Spookfest poster behind him.
True, yeah.
Which makes me think that Fall Fest is just a continuous thing that happens regardless of, stuff going on with Fazbear. So I think that obviously it doesn't say Fall Fest on it, but I'm not sure that, in FNAF 6, Scott had Fall Fest in mind. And then I think it could be that when he added the Spookfest thing from behind Scrap Trap into the Fall Fest barn, that he was kind of trying to connect Fall Fest and Spookfest together. But that's what makes me think that it probably continues, because obviously FNAF 6 happens way later in the timeline.
Yeah. I think FNAF 6 has a lot of early ideas for stuff we'd see in Curse of Dreadbear and Secret of the Mimic, because it has those Jackie posters, it has Spookfest, it also has like I'm pretty sure the Ultimate Guide says this, where it's like, oh, next to Scrap Trap there's a poster of a hospital that could be Hercules Hospital from the Man in Room 1280, which I think is a stretch, and I think it's weird for the guide to call it out, but I guess that kind of connects to the books as well. But Fazbear Frights, Man in Room 1280 is in Bunny Call, and that came out like 2019, I think, so it's not that far off. It's like 2 years, I guess.
Yeah. There is actually one more thing in Help 1 and 2. I don't know if you know about this or have made this connection before. It's kind of one of those ones that goes both directions, like 83 and 87, depending on how you interpret it. But in the lobby for Help 1 and 2, whenever you get all of the dolls, they all kind of like go to their areas where it makes sense for them, right? So like the Golden Freddy doll is next to the staff bot head, which, you know, in the Staffton family, the staff bot was missing its head to represent the bite victim, and so Golden Freddy being next to the staff bot head is a pretty clear connection there. And then Chica's doll is at the food location. Bonnie's is by the arcade games where it's, you know, there's the Bonkabon and stuff like that. Foxy's is next to all the MCM stuff. It's next to the carousel, and it's next to Mystic Hippo, which makes sense because Foxy came from MCM. And the puppet is next to a pair of chattering teeth and a Freddy drawing, like a drawing of Freddy. Which, you know, now that we know Charlie died at Freddy's, I think this is saying, you know, I think that was a hint towards this, that, you know, all the dolls are next to their respective things, and then we see the puppet doll next to Freddy Fazbear. Here, I'll send the picture of it to you so you can take a look at it too when I'm talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Yeah, I think I've seen this before. It's interesting that it's Freddy specifically. Actually kind of ties back into that security puppet sister location thing we were talking about. That's interesting.
Yeah, and so, you know, I was thinking that the teeth being there as well is indicative that wherever Charlie died, it was, you know, I think this could be saying that, you know, at a Freddy's where a bite happened because of the teeth, which would be the 87 location. But Unwithered thinks that this is more saying that she died at a Freddy's around the time of a bite, which would be the 83 location, because Freddy, you know, Golden Freddy did the bite. So it's one of those ones, I think. Yeah, it's one of those ones where you can take it both ways, I think.
I think I saw some people... sorry, go on. I think I saw some people point out on Twitter right before Secret of the Mimic came out that the illustration of Freddy that appears in, like, next to the puppet doll is always the same, and it always has those blue and green eyes. So I think that's funny. It kind of ties back to MCM and how there's the puppet designs in Edwin's computer, and how you have the connection between MCM and the puppet. You've got the 1983, theoretically the creation of the puppet. So it also ties back to that. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, and lastly, to kind of wrap this up, because we're already at 50 minutes, I want to talk about the FNAF 2 movie. It's not out yet, obviously, but
yes,
from the trailer alone, so I rewatched it before we started recording. So what do you think about the implication that Charlie could have died at the FNAF 2 location that's given to us in that trailer?
Yeah, I think that's, you know, I was really happy when I saw that. But it's kind of hard because it's one of the two things where it's like, you know, I feel like every release that's been happening has been giving like an 87 indication, but also an 83 alongside of it. Like the 5 Laps of Freddy's dice had the 87, but then on the dice where it says 7, there's a 3 on each side of the 7. And so it's like, okay, well, is this thing 87 or is it saying 83? Because there's 3s also like unnaturally there. And then, you know, with the FNAF 2 movie, it's like, okay, well, she died at the toys location with the toy animatronics, which only existed in 87 in the games, but they also say it's the first Freddy's, and presumably she dies before the MCI in the movies. And so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, it goes both ways. But I do find it interesting that, you know, I'll send it here, but one of the screens it lingers on whenever it's talking about Charlie's death is it goes over Toy Chica.
Yeah.
And I think that connects back to Tickets to Fun with Toy Chica's bid on the page. Yep. So that's kind of, you know, an interesting connection there. Also, with the fact that she died at the FNAF 2 location in the movies, you know, the take cake to the children. Obviously, we're talking about the save him versus save, you know, like the, you know, possibility of Sammy or whatever. But I think it's interesting that the bear walking around during, you know, take cake to the children is walking around during the day. And if this is supposed to be Charlie, we know that she died at a Freddy's. And the only time we know for certain that the animatronics walked around during the day is the 87 location. And it's called out as, you know, being a unique thing for the 87 location.
Yeah, it's like a big deal.
They spent a small fortune on these new animatronics, facial recognition, advanced mobility. They even let them walk around during the day. Isn't that neat? So that kind of implies to me that the ability to walk around during the day is unique to the 87 location. Which, if that's Charlie and take cake to the children, that's a bear that's walking around during the day. And we know it's not Fredbear's anymore, so it's probably not a Springlock zoo, especially because in the files for Help Wanted 2 for the Take Cake minigame in Fazbear Blast, the Take Cake bear is called Freddy. So it's
really?
Freddy Fazbear. Yeah, it's a Freddy Fazbear that's walking around during the day, which is called out as being unique to the 87 location. So
Yeah.
I think it's just, with her dying at the 87 location in the movies as well. I think it's kind of like a mix of both timelines is what they're going with the movie, where I think they're pulling from the novels where she died first at the first location, but they're also tying it to the games because I think she died at the 87 location in the games. And so I think they're like mixing the two of them together.
I think what they're gonna do in the movie is, because some people were using this as like Fredbear's and the 1987 location being the same, which I doubt, but I think it makes sense to explain why Henry's involved, because Henry's in the movie for sure.
Yeah.
So it could be that they, like, after Fredbear's and after whatever events could be adjacent to the bite in the movies, they remade it into the first ever quote-unquote location, which is the 87 restaurant. And then that kind of sparks Henry to come back when that location starts being messed with. So that's why he meets Mike and theoretically Springtrap if he's in the movie. It's all very, very much speculation, but I guess it kind of makes sense.
I mean, I also think for the games, Fredbear's was turned into the FNAF 2 location because, in the phone calls, he says, we're going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner.
Yeah.
And then also in the FNAF 2 advertisement, whenever, you have like the Help Wanted thing, it says a vintage pizzeria given new life, which the only vintage pizzeria we would know of at the time that was no longer open would be Fredbear's, which was also the first time it was mentioned in FNAF 2.
Yeah.
And so I think it makes sense for the FNAF 2 location to be a refurbished Fredbear's, which they might go with in the movie as well.
Yeah, that's a good call out. I didn't think about the original restaurant owner being actually the original restaurant and not just the first restaurant of Freddy's.
Yeah.
Also, it's worth pointing out that pretty sure Johnny the Night Guard called this out, like when the first FNAF movie released, that the MCI in the movies die in 1987. Like, for a fact, it's like pretty much confirmed they die in 87 if we line up how old Mike was when Garrett got kidnapped with how old he is in the movie. Because the movie takes place in 2000.
Yeah, I think technically all that we know was that Garrett was killed in 87, and then we know that the MCI was after Garrett. But we don't know how far after Garrett,
I think it was I think it was in quick succession because Vanessa has the plane. The plane is like very much like fresh. It looks the same. So it's just,
I think it also was,
Garrett
but
in the end,
So the MCI Garrett will die in likely in 87 in the movies.
Yeah, which it also ties back to the Living Tombstone song in the credits. We've been all alone, stuck in our little zone since 1987.
Although I think I was thinking that they say 87 in the novelization, but it's also 87 based off what Mike says for his age. So it's the case, and it's not just for the novel that it's an 87.
Okay, so the last question, kind of before we wrap things up. So why do you think people hate Charlie87 so much, just in general?
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't tell you. I think that the reason it's hated so much is because I think a lot of people, have just had the assumption that 87 or 83 was just like confirmed pretty much, and that there's nothing to challenge it. And so I think that when there's stuff coming out to challenge it, people are like, there's no point in trying to go back. Like, making it 87 doesn't change anything for the story, and it doesn't do anything. There's no reason for it to be 87, and it might as well just continue to be 83 like it is in the novels. So I think I don't know. I think it's just the idea that it's so different, I guess, from what people assume canon. Because like, if we're talking about changing Charlie's, date for her death, then like, what else can be changed from what we previously assumed? I think that's fun. Like, I think it's it's fun to challenge these held beliefs and stuff like that. Like that's part of why Dual Process took off so much, because they really pushed the idea of Golden Uno. The idea that there's only one kid in Fredbear. And I don't know, people just don't like different ideas. I guess
people don't like challenging the status quo of what's already established. They don't like changes, which is why I didn't like some of the things that were introduced in the new games, and why I didn't like Charlie87 at first. I'm kind of warming up to it. I still don't believe it, but I think it's much more likely now than I thought like 3 months ago, maybe.
Yeah, and I think like my take is that I think Steelwool and Scott are doing a really good job with the story. So I think that if it is that she died in 87, that they're going to do a good job of making it like feel narratively satisfying regardless. I think there's so much stuff. It's like release after release has some 87 evidence, right? Because it's in Ultimate Custom Night, we didn't even talk about this, but Ultimate Custom Night, Chica's, I was the first.
Yeah.
And then, Help Wanted 2, the Grave Order, and then Five Nights at Freddy's, the 87 dice, and then the wristbands and Tickets to Fun, and then the FNAF 2 movie where she died with the toys. And so it's like release after release, it just keeps having things that like I think can indicate Charlie87. And so my thought process is like, well, why would they even, want to possibly imply that Charlie could be last in 87 if that's not the intention that they're trying to go for? Like if she died in 83, why put 87 on the dice? Why put Charlie last in the gravestone order? Why put, the Choi Ticket bib on the page and stuff like that, unless they're trying to like make a shift to 87. And I think that we probably will in the future get something that covers her death in the FNAF 2 time better, if it is the case that she died in 87, in which case I think Scott and Steele will do a good job of making that fit within the story. So I don't care really about like the narrative of it all. Like people like, oh, it doesn't make any sense, it's a bad story and stuff like that. Like we don't know the story. Like everybody thought Tales Games was going to be good, and that we got Secret of the Mimic, and I think the story is so much better. So I agree. Like I have faith that if it is 87, regardless of like, I have my ideas for like what it could mean for the story, but like I don't think whatever I can come up with for the story would compare to what Scott and Steele will come up with for the story if she died in 87. So like I'm just looking at the evidence that's coming out and being like, this is what makes sense to me, and the story comes later. Like I think that'll be fleshed out.
Yeah. I think Secret of the Mimic did a very good job of establishing a new story and making things make sense, and it also tied it into William and Henry and so on.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll do it for today. We're almost at an hour. We're 10 seconds away from an hour, so this went on for a while. More than I expected. I thought it would be too little, but no, this is great. Thanks a lot for coming on. This was really interesting. Yeah, chat. Remember to like and subscribe to me and Fazbear Entertainment. His channel will be in the description, and he'll probably comment on the video. Hopefully, we'll see.
True.
And yeah, have yourself a great day, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.